Joining me is the Australian's US correspondent, Adam Creighton. Adam, thank you so much for joining me. Look, Donald Trump's landmark hush money trial, it's heard from his former lawyer, Michael Cohen. But according to some polls, this trial isn't turning off voters.
Yeah, look, I think more broadly, it's not hurting Donald Trump so far. I mean, it's been in the news, basically saturation coverage here for 3 weeks. But if you look at the political betting markets and the national polls, over the past 3 weeks, Donald Trump has actually inched up slightly. So it's not hurting him yet. But of course, the verdict is not out yet. And that actually could come just in a few weeks, because the trial itself only has a couple more days to go, potentially maybe 3 or 4 more days. Michael Cohen was the last witness. And that of course, is except if Trump himself decides to testify next year. But there could be a guilty verdict. Maybe that will have a big impact on Trump, but so far it's not.
Yeah, and next week, I think you mean, the former president is reportedly ahead in 5 of the 6 key swing states. Adam, let's talk about the US border crisis. You were at the Mexico border just last week. This, of course, is one of the key policy battles that is going to change votes ahead of the election.
Yes, that's right. Certainly it's still the #1 political issue in the US for most voters. Of course, there's been all the focus on the Trump trials, but it's still the border, and all of those millions of people that have been crossing. It was really interesting to go to Eagle Pass, which has been basically the coalface of the crossings. I went there for a few days, and one of the surprising things, well, actually 2 surprising things. Firstly, the numbers have fallen off extremely dramatically. So there's been a big drop, and most of the locals aren't actually quite sure why. So that's part of the mystery. And secondly, I think the politics of these border towns is changing too. It's becoming a little more Republican. These were Democrat strongholds for a long time, so that is quite significant too.
Look, we're also hearing about this surprise decision where the US House of Reps will buy 2 nuclear-class submarines next year. This was after a budget proposal which only indicated they might buy 1. So what does this mean for the AUKUS security pact?
Well, it's actually quite good news. I mean, back in February and March, there were quite a few scary headlines that were basically saying the US government wasn't going to buy as many submarines as we first thought. And of course, that would have been bad for AUKUS because we're meant to get 3 starting from 2032. But the Congress has basically pushed back against that and said, no, we're going to buy 2 this year and 2 next year and 2 after that. So basically, it's pretty good news for Australia. And there's still a lot more subs that need to be built yet, but we're on a better track now.
Yeah. Are there still concerns about some in the Republican Party not actually supporting, not actually the AUKUS agreement as such, but the provision of nuclear submarines to Australia?
Yeah, look, I think that's fair to say. It's true. I mean, it all depends on who's president in 2030, 2031, because then the president at the time has to say that selling these 3 subs to Australia will not hurt the US Navy. And right now, the US Navy has fallen massively behind in sub production. So it's really got to pick up the pace.
Yeah, all right. Adam Creighton, thank you so much for joining us live from Washington, where, of course, it's very early in the morning, and we appreciate his time.